Thank you for being flexible about timing. We got a little confused, but
Sure, no worries, no worries.
I'm
Right.
recording, so I will just turn things over to you. We have about 1 minute. So
Okay, yeah. Let me go ahead and show my
I'll
screen.
make sure you're a co-host too, just in case.
Okay. Right. Welcome, everyone. Nice to see so many people.
Yes.
All right. Let me. Okay, I like to see all the faces. So I'm like, I have this huge screen, so I'll be looking at, that means I'm looking at your face. Okay, so yeah, well, why don't we get started by first just starting out with some introductions, online introductions, right? So to get a sense of who we all are. I know you've done similar things in some of the other sessions, but hopefully you'll be meeting and learning about new people as well. So yeah, if you want to drop in the chat your institution, role related to student teachers especially, and then what you hope to glean from this session. I will type my own. Wow, great. Looks like a wide range of experience, levels, subject areas. Hey. Want to learn how to promote meaningful reflection. Awesome. Being more mindful in my supervision and support. Cool. And I think do all of you have access to the PowerPoint? I think I can drop the link in just in case. Just for easy access.
Yeah. I opened it on my iPad.
Yeah. Hey, so wonderful and welcome everyone. I think I even saw a couple colleagues from my university. Helen, there you are. Hello. Okay, so yeah, we'll start out with the goals of the session, which it appears aligned so far, kind of from what I've seen with what you all hope to get out of the session. So that's encouraging. We won't have to make too many adjustments, although we always make adjustments right on the fly. So what a primary goal is for all of us to just kind of share, talk about, discuss our context, right? Our supervision context. And specifically what we're focusing on is some of these theory to practice gaps that we often experience, or our teacher candidates, our student teachers often experience kind of, between their coursework and then when they get into the classroom, certain disconnects, particularly related to culturally responsive and culturally sustaining pedagogy. And so, so kind of for you all to kind of compare and contrast. So what are similar things you all are experiencing with your student teachers, or maybe some differences? And so then the more concrete, we're going to be exploring a dilemmas of practice protocol that I use with my student teachers, and actually, and some faculty or supervisors in our program also use sort of different versions of it as well. So yeah, and so we're going to kind of explore the protocol, and then I'm actually hopefully with enough time give you all a chance to sort of role model and within groups use it yourself. So go through the actual process or part of the process. All right, cool. And Lisa, feel free to interrupt me if like a question comes up to what I'm speaking about that I don't see.
Okay, I'll monitor the chat and let you know if there
Okay,
are questions.
thank you. All right, so I want to provide a little bit of context about our program, our teacher education program at San Jose State, and what supervision looks like there. And I know some of the other supervisors have presented, so this may be a review for some of you, but it's also different. I'm going to talk more about the secondary piece. I do supervise teacher candidates in the secondary program, and I also coordinate our intern program. So yes, have those two different roles in addition to teaching foundations classes. So our program, it's the kind of the essence. Of course, there's flexibility, and things can be slightly different, but kind of the essence of our program now, it's a 3-semester program. This is for full-time students, 3-semester program, credential and master's. So they do their credential coursework, their student teaching, and 2 additional master's classes within those 3 weeks. So it's very intense. And then within the program, and our department is continuously, working on and talking about and figuring out, trying to align, our practices around anti-racist, culturally responsive, and culturally sustaining pedagogy. And in just a second, I'll talk about, some of kind of the core threads and elements we have. Although I will have to say it's always still a work in progress, right? And we don't have it down to a T by any means. So semester 1 candidates mostly take just courses, so they don't have a field experience, although that's changing. We're adding in a little mini field experience, which I'm really happy about. So which will hopefully help with that theory to practice gap some. And so their first semester, it's coursework. We try to integrate assignments and things that are very practical, where they do, go to a school or interview teachers or administration or so forth. And then semesters 2 and 3, second semester, they have phase 1 of their student teaching. It's a less, it's a very graduated experience. And then phase 2, which is more intense. They actually lead teach in 4 periods during phase 2. And then they also have not a lot of heavy kind of foundational coursework, but more maybe one traditional course, but then support seminars that are really tied to their practice and support them in their practice. Okay, and yeah, so just a couple, and I'm going to kind of not spend a lot of time on this because I want us to get to the discussion and practice, but these are just kind of some of the core program threads that we have. And again, as a faculty, we're constantly meeting, trying to align, and even develop sort of signature assignments that embed these core threads, right? So culturally responsive and culturally sustaining pedagogy. This is some of the work that faculty draw on. Faculty and supervisors, actually. And then another piece, an important piece, is low inference interrogation. So really challenging students in different ways to reflect on the worldview that they bring, who they are, what their beliefs, and assumptions, biases that they may have. And then and to unpack those. And then also our goal, we want to produce or send out educators in the field, not produce them, but send educators into the field, who have an asset orientation and question, question that not only their own beliefs, but the practices, policies, the broader practices and policies that they're seeing, and challenging them when they can, when they're, contradict culturally responsive and anti-racist policies. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I could do a whole presentation on that, but yeah. And so going to then the main elements of the student teachings, and this is phase one. That's mainly what I work with. And it's a shorter experience. Teacher candidates are in 2 classes with a mentor teacher. So they co-plan. We do have a co-plan or co-teaching model, where they co-plan. They start out with less responsibility, graduate to more responsibility, but we really encourage them to start out, doing as much as they can with their mentor, with their students, and so forth. And so then they have a one of us, a San Jose State supervisor, who we work with them, we observe them. CTC required 6 times a semester or more. And then, we do observation cycles with them. So sort of a pre-meeting where they set goals, and then, share our lesson plan, we give feedback and so forth, and then do the debrief. We also have a biweekly supervision seminar, so that generally meets every 2 weeks. And so that's kind of the piece that I'm going to be focusing on, which is where we implement this dilemmas of practice protocol, or I implement it. And just a note for a little more context, during this time, they're also taking a creating effective learning environments course. Some people refer to it as classroom management, which we don't like to call it that, because we don't consider it management, right? We consider it learning about our students, delving into who they are, and how we interact with them, and create a inclusive environment that promotes equity and so forth. So and they're also completing cycle 1 of the Cal TPA. And so we implement support for that as well. So that's what they're doing pretty much. So kind of going back to the dilemma that I raised a little bit at the beginning. So as students begin their student teaching, right, after going through a lot of coursework, they often struggle applying theory to practice, right? And so they have this gap, and once they're in the classroom, negotiating the realities of their teaching placement. So yeah, I thought just for a little bit to give you all a chance to kind of talk a little bit and share. I thought we would take 10 minutes, and we'll go in breakout groups of 4 to share a little bit about your context, your supervision context, and the student teachers who you work with, and then sort of how your understanding of how culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy is integrated into your program. And then, talk about what patterns or ongoing issues arise with your students, and actually bridging theory to practice, right? Actually implementing CRP, CST practices. Okay, so any questions before we break out?
I
You're
can create
good.
the rooms if you'd like.
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah. Wonderful. And just be mindful of the 10 minutes so everyone gets a chance to share. Okay, welcome back, everyone. How many of you were in mid-sentence when when you got cut off? So let me find my chat. There we go. All right, so yeah, hopefully you had a little bit of good discussion and started to kind of get into some issues that maybe some of you shared and or situations that some of you share. Oops, I'm sorry. So we're actually we're not going to take time to kind of to debrief that conversation, but rather we're going to move into the next area, which we'll give you time to talk more because we'll have another breakout group, and I want us to have more time in that breakout group. All right, so yeah, I want to talk about the what I call dilemmas of practice protocol, and it's draws on some of you may have heard of problem of practice protocols or a critical friends protocol, consultancy protocol, things like that. So basically kind of what I use sort of pulls different pieces from all of those different versions of a critical friends protocol. And I really focus it on culturally responsive and culturally sustaining pedagogy. And so really, so what it is it's a framework to promote, and this is where our student teaching seminar comes in, right? To promote deep and meaningful conversations and kind of provide a structure for students to really unpack and critically reflect on and get thoughtful input and even challenges from their peers on what's going on, you know, the issues that they bring up. And so in a nurturing and positive way, right? And so with the ultimate goal for students to critically reflect on practice and better be able to serve their students. And again, this is in their seminar, and so it's a community of practice, right? So, you know, we meet, and many of the students know each other from the program anyway. So it's a very safe environment and supportive environment. You know, do a lot to try to create and foster that. So yeah, what is this? What does this look like? So here's kind of a visual of the protocol, and then I'll go into each piece in a little more detail.
We can't see your screen, Katya. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shoot.
No, it's okay.
I guess I forgot we have to reshare then when we come back, huh? Yeah, okay. Sorry about, y'all can see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I'll just go back for a second to the slide. So that's the first slide that I had up, sorry. But yeah, you all have access to it. So, okay, so the protocol, so basically during our seminar, and not everyone, my seminar is typically 5 or 6 student teachers who meet together. And actually, I used to supervise all different subject areas in the phase 1. Now it's more my content area, which is English. We're trying to group content areas together. And so, so usually 1 or 2 people will go each time, just because we have other things we focus on and do in the seminar, and there's not time for everyone to share. So the first part is posing, right? So one of the student teachers presents a dilemma of practice. Then we have probing, right? They discuss it with their peers, and then feedback, the feedback step. Peers give feedback, and then the presenter kind of determines and talks about next steps they're going to take once they go back in the field. Then, of course, they enact, so trying out the new strategy or approach. And then the next seminar, or when they reflect on how it went and come back and report back next seminar. So to go in a little more depth, so with the posing, right? So, and I've actually laid out the slides like how I present it to them. So, you know, you're more than welcome to take the slides and use them if you'd like to use them with your student teachers. But I have them describe the major issue that they're struggling with. And this should be something ongoing, right? Something they're grappling with. And maybe they've tried this and that and just hasn't worked. So they just kind of feel stuck or puzzled. And so, and then so to describe it and be as specific as they can. And we try to really emphasize, low inference, what are the facts? What are the observable things that you can describe, right? So try not to make make assumptions or infer things, but just kind of describe what you're seeing, observing, and so forth. And then we encourage them to like frame a question, right? So how do we, and so an example I have here. So I have an emerging bilingual student in my English 1 class who is disengaged and rarely participates in class. What can I do to get her to participate more? So that would be a question we would see in the seminar.
Katya, can I interrupt? We had a question
Sure.
about whether you do this in person or also over Zoom.
Good question. Yes, I actually do it over Zoom. I've been doing my seminars over Zoom now. I used to have it in person, but the past several semesters I've been doing Zoom. The students, I pull them, to see if they prefer to meet in person. They're kind of all over the place geographically. And so it's hard, it's hard for them to make a trip to campus just for the seminar. And probably, yeah. So, but we do some community building, before, because I know even within our small group, we were talking about, well, our seminars that we have in Zoom, some people just want to turn the camera off and, and participate as passively as they can sometimes, right? I mean, that's not everybody, but I do build, kind of build in expectations and people knowing, that they are going to be sharing and are going to be asked to give feedback, right? And within that community, it works well, actually. It does work really well. So, and again, it's a small group. If you had a larger group, you may want to modify it. It might work better with modifications. So, okay. Yeah. So that would be an example. So probing, and this I see as almost the most important piece. Oops, sorry. So the peers then are asked to ask the presenter clarifying questions. And I really emphasize the first questions are not, not trying to problem solve, right? And during this step, the probing step. So the clarifying, just kind of more, questions about observable things, the evidence. So who, what, where, when, and how. So just more clarification of the context, or for the presenter to elaborate. So, yeah, and so maybe in additional details, right? Then after that, more probing questions. We move to probing questions, right? And so this is where ideally the deep discussion and kind of reflection and on comes in. And so they're more open-ended. And so I ask the peers who are giving feedback or asking questions, actually not giving feedback yet. It's really important that we slow them down and they don't give feedback yet, right? We want to learn more and delve in deeper. But to think about and ask questions that will get at these things, right? So where are the gaps? What might the presenter not be considering? What assumptions might be at play? What areas might be worth exploring? And so, for example, with the English learner student, right? The example, my emerging bilingual doesn't participate in class. How can I get them to participate more? So maybe one question a student might pose is, well, are there times when the student does participate? Or, are there any times, could you describe a time when you have seen her engage, right? So kind of, rather than just looking at the sort of the deficit, what the student isn't doing, looking at it from a different perspective. Okay, So yeah, so then comes the feedback piece. So after, and it's really interesting, like after the presenter fields these questions, and really thinks about it, you kind of see them kind of often sort of changing. Oh, well, I didn't think about that, or oh, huh, I'll have to look into that. I really don't know. Or so as opposed to more of kind of just the superficial things that they see and then maybe make assumptions about, right? Or conclusions about without exploring it, interrogating it further. So feedback then that the peers offer, we want them to consider. So what alternative framings might you offer, right? So maybe kind of like the question, well, when does the student tend to engage more, or so forth. And then tangible suggestions or concrete strategies they might offer based on now the context and details that they understand and some of the interrogation. So yeah, the final piece then, the student teacher goes out, goes back to their placement, and then actually tries out the new approaches or strategies. Then we have them reflect on the outcome. So what worked, what didn't work. And then again, the really important piece, going back to evidence, right? Observable data, like what are you basing this on? When you say, the students still not engaging, well, what does that non-engagement look like? When does it happen, right? And so reports back to the group. And sometimes, the dilemma, like the student teacher feels pretty good about it and is ready to kind of focus on, feels like they've made a lot of progress and is ready to focus on something else. Often they'll come back with kind of different questions around it, right? Well, I tried this and, this worked well, but this piece didn't, and so forth. So it's an ongoing reflection process. Okay, so before we actually take some time to have you all try this process out, do you have any questions, any comments? Nope, you're good? Okay. You want to be able to do, right? Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to, so you're going to go back into groups. And I don't know if when we did the groups of 4, did a couple people get left in really small, like groups of 2?
I think we had pretty good even groups.
Okay, because that's a good number. Yeah. So what we're going to do, and it's it's 11:17. We have it. This session ends at 11:40. Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So we will. Yeah, we'll take the rest of the time and then just have a few minutes to come back. Whole group. So yeah, and you're going to have groups of 4, and you're going to go through the first 3 steps of the protocol, right? The posing, the probing, and then the feedback. So someone in your group is going to volunteer to share, to be the presenter, right? So to share their own dilemma, and so their own dilemma as a teacher or supervisor, I'm sorry, supervisor and teacher in supporting their students, your students around culturally responsive and culturally sustaining pedagogy. So what's something in working with your candidates is kind of an ongoing dilemma that you struggle with, that you would like to get feedback on. Then I would like someone to be a facilitator, so to moderate the conversation, kind of keep the protocol in mind, make sure everyone is following the protocol and kind of bring them back to the elements if necessary. Especially during the probing, make sure people don't start giving feedback yet. And then a timekeeper. So I think what will work for this will be actually, let's try to keep it to about 5 minutes for each step. Or actually 15 minutes total. Usually step 2 is the longest, the probing, right? Step 1 is the shortest. So if you can, maybe, 2 to 3 minutes for the first step, and then a little longer for the step 2, and then little less, maybe for step 3, the feedback. Okay, so but just kind of go with the flow. And then a debrief note taker. So we'd like you to, hopefully we'll have time for this. If we don't, it's okay. But it's to debrief, and then in your group, and then I have a Jamboard link. I dropped it in the chat. Did all of you see that there? Or actually, maybe I didn't. Let me redrop it. Okay. It's also on the slide. Oh yeah, there's a link to it on the slide. So, so just kind of reflections from your group, and you don't have to answer all of them, maybe just one or 2 of the questions. Okay, so I do want to let you go. So
Katya, I have
yes.
a quick question.
Mhm.
So you want the presenter to be presenting as a student, hypothetical student teacher or supervisor?
No, as a supervisor. So,
So problem
yeah,
of practice with supervision.
for
Great.
them. Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you for that. Yeah, good question. All right. So would you mind doing the, thank you.
Yeah, just
Lisa.
open them.
We don't have access to the Jamboard. If someone can put that in.
Yeah, we need edit access to Jam. Jam on it.
Lisa, if you're the host, I came in after the first set of breakout rooms, so I'm not assigned to one yet.
Okay, thank you. I will assign you.
Me
Let's-
too.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry if you were, our schedule changed a bit. So let's see, I'll put you in room 5, Colleen. Whoops. Assign 2. Let's get this working. There we go. 5. Okay. Let's see, assign to room 4. And then I think I will create.
You just put all of us remaining here in a group.
That's true, except we're trying to get 4 people in each. Room
Okay.
7.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, and then room 8. Sorry, around. So I think I will. Can I create a new room? Trying to put you all in your own, the 3 of you in your own room, and I can join. Let's see. Can I create a room? Anyone know how to do that? Once I created the rooms, I'm just trying to create a new room.
I feel like there is a way, but without having the controls in front of me.
I know, I just can't see. It's like putting all the rooms. Okay, so I'm going to put you in the room where Katya is. So I'll do room 4 for you. Room 4.
Thank you.
Be sure. And then Bev, I know you're not going to be participating. So. Okay, enjoy. Did you get it? Yeah. Hope you feel better, Bev.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. And I'm so sorry. It was brought to my attention at the last minute that the Jamboard people could only view it. So my apologies. I'm going back to the PowerPoint here. So yeah, I think we've got like 3 minutes. So maybe we can share out some of the reflection, do the debrief quickly, just with a few share outs. So yeah, you all can see the PowerPoint, right? Yes, okay. Perfect. So yeah, maybe in the chat or and verbally, if anyone would just like to share from in going through this process, a response to any of the reflection questions here. And I'm finding the chat. There we go. And I'm looking for hands.
Someone said
Lisa.
great tool.
Lisa Giglio, you've got your hand up, right?
I do. Hello. Thank you
Hello.
for practice. Our group was very generous with their sharing. In short, the problem was the ongoing how we help. The problem is sustaining a definition of shared practice in the classroom between a mentor teacher and a teaching candidate. And the probing questions were objective and contextualizing. Their feedback led into what was enacted and are reflecting, and that feedback was suggestive of explicitly defining rapport for both groups in advance, that this relationship is based on that, and that I outed myself with 11 candidates last year, so it was suggested that a strategy for pacing rapport would be useful for me to change. That would be on me. And that infusing fun and options included coffee if you're local or a dance party if you're not. And I appreciated the probing questions that involved, are the coordinators and the department, what is their role in supporting supervisors to define participation across these relationships? And how does the institution define participation? And the other reflecting was part of this problem comes from the timing of placements. The more lead time you have, the more you can create that. If you're dropping somebody in October, God bless. In short.
Okay, yes.
That was our sharing, and I had a lovely, helpful group.
All right, thank you. Okay, it's Lisa, do we need to stick to time? It's 11:40.
Oh, don't worry. If people want to continue, we have a whole
Okay.
hour for lunch today, so we have time for more
okay.
discussion. Yeah, if folks want to continue talking, that's
Yeah, maybe if
fine.
just one or two others would like to share kind of in using this tool, and some of you may have done it a little differently. My goal was for you just as a supervisor to share an ongoing dilemma of practice that you have with your teacher candidates, but we actually sort of went into a teacher student teaching scenario, but that worked out well too. And so yeah, Erin. Hi, Erin.
Hi. Hello, SDSU represent. I was sharing with my very generous group my dilemma that comes up consistently, which is the teaching or instructor hat versus the coach hat, like the many roles that we play. And when am I like doing almost like directed like really directly instructing within a relationship with my candidate versus really coaching through and listening to how their experiences are in the classroom. And I can see real value in making this making more space for this for colleagues to wear those hats, because there can be, it feels like a lot of pressure, like, well, how many answers do I have for this question, or do I even have them? Or, those kinds of things. But I think I've met with some real challenges as I've acquired more candidates in the single subjects, especially in history. And so that's what I was thinking about, was a history candidate particularly. And so when I think about that, I received some really helpful questions and thoughts from my colleagues in our room. So thank you for the opportunity.
Sure. Amy Wong, you have your hand up?
Hi, Erin. Hi, Katya.
Hello.
I was really curious. I really enjoyed being in our group, and I was really curious if Susan from our group is comfortable with sharing a bit more. She was mentioning how it felt like to be on the receiving end of the questions, and I really was curious to hear more about that, because I think it's so valuable to try to get into the space of a potential to potentially get into the space of a candidate and what they're kind of, experiencing as they're hearing these questions, and trying to process them and trying to come up with, eloquent responses.
Especially since we were kind of bombarding her with questions, right?
At the time that I was laying out the problem, when you started asking me the questions in my head, I was seeing almost solutions to the problem before you even started finishing your comments. And I was thinking, oh, that's a good idea. I should do that. Or I know how I can implement that. And so I think part of it is I needed to be a better listener and let you finish your entire thoughts before my mind started working on solving the problem. Because your questions were very good. They were very, I wouldn't say intense, but they made me think, oh, this can be done and this problem can be solved. And so I felt really comfortable with your bombardment of questions. And thought, oh, there is a solution, and that I really think this is a great tool. And as the person who is receiving your questions, as I said, my mind just kept thinking, this is solvable. This is something that I can work on. I can do it this way. So by your questions, my mind was already trying to solve the problem. I hope that answered you, Amy.
That was really great. I really loved that perspective. Thank you so much.
Gonna add on to that, because I was in the group with Amy and Susan. Interestingly, as someone who was asking questions, and because the dilemma she presented was from the point of view of a student teacher, I was imagining myself being a fellow student teacher, being a part of this. And just the amount that it was forcing me to think about just good teaching practices, for example, just in what questions I asked her. Yeah, it wasn't my problem, but I do small group work just like the topic of her dilemma. So just the amount that I was stimulating my own thought is gonna, help my own practice too, even though it wasn't my own consultancy that day.
It was really hard to think of good questions to ask.
Yeah, and actually candidates, they develop their skills in that as we go on. Sometimes at the beginning it's a little some of the questions aren't as critical or deep, but yeah, and it's interesting, right, as we said. So as students are asking questions, it's almost like the presenter, the person with the dilemma, is sort of, you see light bulbs turning on, right? But it's by being asked these questions, not by being told, oh, you should try this, right? And I think we saw the questions kind of building on each other, right? Someone would ask a question and the presenter would respond, and then there would be a follow-up. Oh, well, tell me more about this and how this works, right? So, yeah. Well, great. Anyone else before we? Elba, yes.
Hi, I was just wondering, yesterday in Johnny's presentation, when they had the types of talks, the talks that affirm, the talks that connects, and the talks that suggest, is something like that that you present to the student teachers to give them some framework for how to ask the questions and their suggestions?
Yeah, that's not something I've done, but I think it's a great idea. I think incorporating something like that in the tool that would be a excellent way to enhance it, right?
Yeah, Elba, I'm
Mhm.
glad you asked because I see so many connections between, I don't know how many of you were in Johnny's workshop yesterday, but a lot of parallel ideas and a similar protocol that they call collaborative case study inquiry. So Johnny, I don't know if you want to chime in.
Just appreciate this work altogether because it's centering the students' actual lived experience in the classroom as what matters to their learning. It's not just these things we're going to read and it's going to tell you how to be a teacher. It's they're taking their teaching, working with their peers to learn from it. So much appreciation for it. Yeah, and then the idea that dilemmas of practice or problems of practice aren't to be avoided. They're what we
Right.
learn from. I mean, I'm in math education, and math education is all about let's make some mistakes so we can learn from them. So the same thing with teaching too. We're going to have stuff we run into that we're not so sure about. Well, how do we make it part of our learning? So appreciate that, Katya.
Yeah, and how do we collectively sort of share similar experiences and grapple with with what we're experiencing and come to solutions? Yeah,
And that part
Great.
too, just that we don't do it by ourselves. The idea
exactly.
that we work with each other.
Well, at UCI, they have cohorts of the students. So does Vanguard, where the student teachers come together every week with their professor. Is that what I think that was one person I was talking. So then the kids can talk then too. The student teachers.
I appreciate that one because the idea that we shift the notion that they're coming to our seminars to hear from us. Making a shift there. That everybody in that, if we go back to some of the equity frameworks and such, or Paulo Freire or whatever, with this community of practice notion, it's like we're coming together. And I know in my case, it's a surprise sometimes when I'm the older person in the room, but I'm sitting aside just listening. That's a shift for them that we might learn from each other, and it's not just about somebody dispensing.
That was the value I saw when I would talk to one of my student teachers. And I'd say, well, have you talked to so-and-so? Because a number of times they were in the same class, 7th grade science or high school science. They were doing the same, kind of following the same schedule. So I said, oh, have you talked to so-and-so about doing, genetic this and that? And then they did go to them during their cohort. So that was really valuable.
Nice.
Yeah, and the whole idea is promoting, kind of the more self-directed learning. Like at the very beginning, they need a little more scaffolding with the protocol, kind of sometimes reminders to come back to this and wait, don't offer your solutions yet, right? But then after a couple of times, you see, I mean, they do it, right? I just kind of sit back as a observer a lot of the times, just interjecting occasionally.
Yeah, and one time I had 2 student teachers who. One was Hispanic and one was Asian, and they were both at a school, 2 different schools, but they primarily had Filipino and Vietnamese students, both of them. So they were able to share, some of the challenges, and it was good. It was just good for them to share out.
Amy, you had one final comment, question?
No, as Gwen and Johnny were talking, I was thinking about the connection here to like candidates to their own students too. How often, like in the TPEs or in, different standards, they want them to critique, they want them to think critically about things, to be able to express themselves. And this would hit, a lot of different standards or practices. And really kind of thinking how if we ourselves have this experience in our seminars or through our coaching, we can also help the candidates with envisioning what that might look like in their classroom, regardless of, you know, the age of their students or anything. But it just adds another, you know, layer to our own practice, that we kind of have a sense of how these kinds of experiences can be facilitated.
I'm appreciating that, Amy, because learning how to talk to each other and listen to each other is a big deal. And, you know, how we do that as teachers for each other is something that, you know, is kind of marginalized or not named. But with Katya's doing what we're doing, we're giving a name to it.
Yeah.
And just to carry that, I mean, in the science standards, the math standards, all those kinds of things, there's ways, part of the discipline is how you talk to each other about the discipline.
Yeah.
And in the math and science, it's very much about inquiry and problem solving, which is what we're setting out for student teachers in the ways we're doing it.
I love it. Yay for Katya.
And Johnny, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make your session, but I will definitely review the materials. It sounds wonderful, and like something that, you know, I can incorporate elements that, especially the different talking, different communication.
Well, I just appreciate that it's very much centered on the student teacher's experience again. As much as we tell them that they should have student-centered teaching, you know, what's our version of it, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. And again, I
Gotcha.
apologize. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just thank
Oh,
you.
sorry.
you.
Sure, sure. And my contact information is on the PowerPoint if anyone wants to email for more information or just questions, or you want a think partner. So thank you all, and I'll see you in another session. See you
Yeah.
later.
Next session's at 12:40. Go relax, stretch.
All
Be
right.
energized for our final workshops. Thank
Yay.
you, everyone.
Thanks.